If you were to put together a list of components to make the perfect sports car, chances are you'd end up with something very similar to the Porsche 718 Boxster Spyder. There's a high-revving, naturally aspirated engine mounted in the middle, linked to a 6-speed manual gearbox. Sizable wheels and tyres cover massive brakes and are controlled by motorsport spec suspension. There are only 2 seats and the roof comes off for when you're not freezing in a Melbourne winter. Given this list of ingredients, the latest Boxster Spyder should be about as good as performance cars get. But it's not perfect.
I'll go into more detail about all the bits I just mentioned and tell you what that problem is later on. But for now, let's go for a drive. If a car is really good, you can usually tell in the first minute or two, and that's the case here. Initially, it's hard to put your finger on why. You soon realise that all the controls are extremely intuitive. Driving smoothly doesn't take any effort. Steering is light and super precise, the gear shift is slick, the brakes are firm and the engine is very responsive. The engine. Now, I'm not someone who has any great problem with the 4-cylinder 718 engines. They aren't amazing, but the 2-litre is quite sweet and the 2.5 GTS even sounds alright, as well as giving the Boxster and Cayman supercar speed. Seriously, a Boxster or Cayman GTS will go well under 4 seconds for 0 to 100 and dip under 12 seconds for the quarter mile. That said, it is nice to have 6 naturally aspirated cylinders back. It just feels right in a car like this.
Is loosely based on the 3-litre twin-turbo unit in the 911 Carreras, but increasing the bore by 11mm and the stroke by 5.1mm expands the capacity to 4 litres. The compression ratio is lifted to 13:1 and virtually every major part of the engine is changed. The end result is 309 kilowatts at 7,600 RPM and 420 Nm from 5,000 to 6,800 RPM. This is the 3rd generation of Boxster Spyder, and it's definitely the most serious from a powertrain perspective. The first Spyder had only a few more kilowatts over a Boxster S. The second one scored the bigger 3.8-litre flat 6 from the 911, but it still felt like a regular production engine, rather than something from the GT department. This new 4-litre fixes that. Obviously, it's not as ferocious as a proper GT3, but it revs to 8,000 RPM and you get that top-end surge that was missing from the last Spyder. It feels more special, more motorsport. The noise is a little bit subdued, but one press of this button and you get that awesome howl that we've missed so much. 0 to 100 is claimed to take 4.4 seconds, which isn't considered that impressive these days. A new A45 will beat that by a full half second. But if you don't think this is a quick car, then I can't help you. Top speed is 301 kilometers an hour. This is the first Boxster to crack 300 Ks, so thankfully it's also the first Boxster to generate downforce, thanks to that massive diffuser at the rear.
An active spoiler also pops up over 120 kilometers an hour.
So the 718 Boxster Spyder finally has the engine it deserves, but it's actually the chassis that's received most of the attention. The last Boxster Spyder scored the Cayman GT4's bigger engine but not its trick suspension, but that's no longer the case. This time around, the drop top also scores the 3-way adjustable suspension from the 911 GT3, as well as massive brakes, 380mm steel discs with 6 piston calipers at the front and 4 pistons at the rear, as well as the option of carbon ceramics.
Combine this Focus setup with Michelin Cup 2 tyres at both ends, and you have a car that grips and grips and grips. In fact, it's a bit too grippy for my tastes. I like to feel the car move around a bit so I know I'm getting close to the limit, but that's pretty much impossible on a dry road. You dive into corners faster and faster, waiting for some understeer or something, but the Spyder just zips around each time without fuss. You need a track to really exploit what this Boxster can do, but there's still plenty to enjoy on the road. The steering is beautifully accurate. You need never give it a second thought. The brakes have great feel, it's easy to heel toe, and then there's always that engine. It even rides pretty well. Yes, it's firm, but the adaptive dampers and rear helper springs combine to cushion most bumps. This isn't a teeth-rattling track car. So what's the problem? What's the fly in this otherwise delicious soup? Well, oddly, it's this. Not the shift itself, which is super accurate, and it gets better the faster you move your hand, but rather the ratios within the gearbox. First stretches to 80 k's an hour, second 136, and third 188. Given the highest speed limit in most of Australia is 110 k's an hour, you can legally use this much of the Boxster Spyder. That's it. 6,500 RPM in second gear. Beyond that, you're beyond the speed limit. Now, Australia's road rules aren't necessarily Porsche's problem, but most countries around the world have similar limits. You've got this amazing engine and gearbox, and you hardly ever get to use them. It's just frustrating because the rest of the car is so good. Thankfully, there is a solution forthcoming. It's all but confirmed that there will be a 7-speed PDK version of the Boxster Spyder, and those closer ratios will make better use of the engine, but you will lose the third pedal. Other issues? Well, if I'm nitpicking, a sports mode ESP would be nice. The manual roof's a bit of a faff and there's quite a lot of road noise. Other than that, it's pretty hard to fault. Yes, it's hard to exploit on the road, but then there's no reason why you shouldn't take this car to a track regularly. For road use, I'd probably go a Boxster GTS 4-litre. Get a proper roof and a bit less grip so it's easier to move the car around. That said, this is an outstanding car. An absolutely awesome machine.